Have you ever felt like life is completely out of your hands? Like no matter how hard you try, no matter how much you plan or prepare, everything just seems to spiral out of control. Maybe the people you trusted let you down. Maybe your dreams feel like they're slipping away. Maybe fear, anxiety, or uncertainty is weighing so heavily on your heart that it feels impossible to breathe. In moments like these, it's easy to feel lost, frustrated, or even defeated. It's easy to think that God is far away or that He doesn't care, but here's the truth: He is closer than you think. He is still in control even when it feels like your world is crumbling. Trusting God isn't about ignoring the struggles. It's not about pretending that pain or chaos doesn't exist. Trusting God means surrendering your fear, your need to control, and your doubts, and placing your life in the hands of someone who sees the bigger picture, someone who knows what you cannot see. It's about believing that even when doors close, He is opening new ones. Even when storms rage, He is guiding you. Even when you feel small and powerless, He is your strength. So if you're here today feeling overwhelmed, discouraged, or broken, know this: there is hope. There is peace, and there is a God who will never let go of you. No matter how chaotic life may seem, no matter how uncertain tomorrow feels, you can trust Him. Not because you understand the plan, not because you see the outcome, but because He is faithful and He is unchanging. Today, I want to invite you to take a deep breath, to let go of the weight you've been carrying, and to step into a trust so strong that even in the midst of life's storms, you can stand firm, confident, and unshakable. This is not just a message, it's a lifeline, and it starts with one simple decision: to trust God even when everything feels out of control. Life has a way of throwing us into situations we never expected. One moment, things can feel stable, familiar, and secure, and the next, everything seems to crumble around us. Plans fail, relationships fracture, opportunities vanish, and we are left standing in the middle of chaos, wondering how we will ever move forward. The truth is, life is unpredictable, and no matter how much we try to control it, there will always be moments when the world seems to be spinning faster than we can keep up. And it is precisely in these moments, when everything feels uncertain, that we are invited to remember one powerful truth: God is still in control. Even when our minds are racing with worry, when fear whispers that we are alone, when circumstances seem impossible, there is a divine hand holding the bigger picture together, orchestrating events in ways we cannot yet understand. Trusting God does not mean that life will suddenly become easy or that the challenges will disappear. It does not mean that pain will vanish or that storms will cease to rage. What it does mean is that there is a source of strength, a guide, a foundation that does not shift with the winds of circumstance. When we begin to anchor ourselves in the understanding that God is in control, even when everything seems out of control, a new perspective begins to emerge. We start to see that the setbacks, the disappointments, and the delays are not random accidents. They are part of a larger story, a story in which every detail has meaning and every step is being watched over. This realization does not remove the struggle, but it transforms the way we navigate it. Instead of reacting with panic or despair, we learn to respond with faith, patience, and courage. Instead of clinging desperately to what we think we need to hold, we begin to release our grip and trust that God's timing is perfect, that His plan is good, and that His wisdom surpasses our own. Trusting God also requires humility. It asks us to acknowledge that our vision is limited, that our understanding is incomplete, and that there are forces at work far beyond what we can see. We are invited to stop trying to orchestrate every detail of our lives and to step back, allowing God to take the lead. This is not a passive act. It is an active, intentional choice to place our faith in a higher power, to commit to walking through uncertainty with confidence that we are not walking alone. As we practice this trust, we begin to notice subtle changes in how we experience life. Anxiety loses its grip, fear becomes manageable, and even in the midst of difficulty, there is a sense of peace that cannot be explained by circumstances. Our hearts begin to understand that control is not ours to command, and that releasing it does not mean losing everything. It means gaining a relationship with the one who has already proven himself faithful countless times throughout history.
Trusting God when life is chaotic also teaches resilience. It strengthens our spirit, sharpens our perspective, and builds a depth of character that only comes from walking through challenges with faith. We learn to face uncertainty not as a threat, but as an opportunity to grow, to lean into God's presence, and to witness His provision and guidance firsthand. It reshapes the way we interpret setbacks, transforming them from dead ends into lessons, from frustrations into steps of preparation, and from confusion into clarity over time. The more we practice trusting God, the more natural it becomes to approach life with a calm and steady heart, knowing that while we cannot predict every twist and turn, we are never abandoned, never overlooked, and never without support. This perspective allows us to move forward with courage, to make decisions without being paralyzed by fear, and to embrace each day with hope, even when the path is unclear. Trusting God is not about pretending that everything is perfect. It is not about putting on a mask of confidence while your heart is heavy with worry, fear, or doubt. Life is full of struggles, and to face them honestly is part of the journey of faith. To trust God means to confront reality with courage, to acknowledge the difficulties before us, and yet to choose to place our hope and confidence in a power greater than ourselves. It is easy to say we trust God when life is smooth, when our plans succeed, and when the path ahead looks clear, but true trust is revealed in the storms, in the moments when we feel helpless and uncertain. This kind of trust requires honesty. It requires telling God exactly how we feel, bringing our fears, frustrations, and questions into the light, and admitting that we cannot do everything on our own.
It is a recognition that while we may not understand the reasons behind the challenges we face, God's wisdom surpasses our understanding, and His plan is greater than what we can imagine. When we truly trust God, we stop trying to force outcomes and start allowing Him to guide our steps. We learn that our attempts to control every detail often lead to unnecessary stress, disappointment, and anxiety. By surrendering our need to manipulate situations, we create space for God's guidance to work in ways we could never anticipate. Trusting God does not mean we become passive observers of our lives. Rather, it means we actively engage with faith, making decisions with courage and integrity while leaving the results in His hands.
It is a delicate balance of effort and surrender, action and patience, knowing that our role is to be faithful in the present moment while trusting God with the outcome. This kind of trust also transforms the way we handle uncertainty. When we rely solely on our understanding, uncertainty becomes a source of fear, paralysis, and frustration. But when we anchor ourselves in God, uncertainty becomes an invitation to grow deeper in faith. Each challenge, each unexpected turn becomes an opportunity to practice trust, to refine patience, and to experience God's presence in tangible ways. Trusting God requires consistency. It is not a one-time decision, but a daily choice to hand over control, to let go of worry, and to walk forward with confidence that God is orchestrating everything for our good. It teaches us to stay present, to focus on what we can do today, and to leave the rest in God's hands. Through this process, we develop resilience. We become less dependent on circumstances, less shaken by setbacks, and more grounded in the certainty of God's love and faithfulness. Our perspective shifts from frustration to understanding, from despair to hope, and from anxiety to peace. Trusting God also reshapes our relationships with others. When we let go of our need to control, we become more patient, compassionate, and understanding. We learn to support others without taking on their burdens entirely, to encourage without manipulating, and to love without demanding results. In all of this, trust becomes a powerful force that shapes not only our inner lives, but also the way we influence the world around us. Every challenge becomes a lesson, every difficulty a stepping stone, and every setback an opportunity to witness God's faithfulness. Over time, trusting God changes not only what we believe about Him, but also what we believe about ourselves. We discover strength we didn't know we had, courage that emerges in the midst of fear, and a peace that endures even when circumstances remain uncertain. It allows us to face life with a sense of hope that is unshakable, to approach difficulties with clarity and calm, and to move forward with confidence that no matter what happens, God's presence is constant, His wisdom is unfailing, and His love is unwavering. There are moments in life when we feel completely lost, when the path ahead seems unclear and the circumstances around us seem chaotic. In those times, it is easy to feel overwhelmed and to think that we must rely solely on ourselves to find the answers, to make sense of what is happening, and to force life into order. But the truth is, our understanding is limited. We cannot see the full picture, we cannot predict every outcome, and we cannot control every twist and turn that life throws at us. God, however, sees everything. He sees the beginning, the middle, and the end. He knows the reason behind every closed door, every delay, every disappointment. He understands the timing, the lessons, and the opportunities hidden within every challenge. Trusting God means acknowledging this truth. It means admitting that our vision is small, our knowledge incomplete, and our control imperfect. It requires humility, a willingness to step back and recognize that there is a greater plan at work, even when we cannot discern it. This trust does not come automatically. Often, it grows gradually through repeated experiences where we begin to see that God's guidance is real and His timing is perfect. Each time we surrender our plans and allow Him to direct our steps, our confidence in His wisdom deepens. Even when the reasons are not immediately clear, we begin to notice patterns, provision, and protection that point to His hand at work. Understanding that God sees the bigger picture transforms the way we approach life. We stop reacting with panic or frustration to every obstacle. We stop measuring success by immediate results and start looking for the underlying growth, lessons, and opportunities that each situation presents. Instead of obsessing over control, we begin to focus on obedience, faithfulness, and the choices that are within our power. When we trust God's perspective, we are no longer paralyzed by uncertainty. We are able to move forward with clarity, knowing that even when the path seems difficult, we are being guided in the right direction. This trust provides peace because it shifts our focus from what we cannot see to the one who sees everything. It allows us to rest not in the absence of problems, but in the presence of a God who is fully aware, fully capable, and fully committed to our well-being. As we grow in this understanding, we also begin to recognize the significance of patience. God's timing is not always immediate, and waiting can be uncomfortable, even painful. Yet, trusting that He sees the bigger picture helps us endure the wait without despair. We begin to see delays as preparation, obstacles as instruction, and setbacks as opportunities to grow stronger in character, faith, and perseverance. Trusting God's perspective also changes how we view others. It helps us to forgive more readily, to show grace where we might have demanded control, and to approach conflicts with compassion rather than frustration. We start to see the unseen motives, the hidden challenges, and the lessons in every interaction. Life becomes less about forcing outcomes and more about participating faithfully in the unfolding plan that God is orchestrating. This perspective fosters resilience, courage, and hope. It empowers us to face uncertainty with confidence, knowing that we are not alone, that nothing escapes God's attention, and that every detail, every challenge, and every victory is part of a larger, meaningful story. When we internalize this truth, life begins to feel less chaotic, even in the midst of storms. We learn to navigate challenges with wisdom, to embrace uncertainty with faith, and to move forward with assurance that God's perspective is perfect, His guidance is unerring, and His love is unwavering, shaping our path in ways we may not yet fully understand. Faith is not something that only exists when life is easy or when circumstances align with our plans. True faith is tested in the moments of uncertainty, in the times when the world around us feels unstable, and when our own strength seems insufficient to face what lies ahead. It is during these moments that our faith grows the deepest roots, developing resilience, endurance, and a clarity of perspective that cannot be achieved through comfort or ease. When life feels unpredictable, faith becomes more than a belief. It becomes a choice, a deliberate decision to trust in God despite what our eyes tell us. Every challenge we face, every unexpected turn, and every delay is an opportunity to strengthen that faith. It is in these moments that we are invited to lean not on our own understanding, but on the certainty that God is faithful, that He is in control, and that His plans are greater than anything we can imagine. Faith grows strongest when it is exercised. Just as a muscle strengthens under resistance, our faith matures through trials, obstacles, and situations that test our reliance on God. Each time we choose trust over fear, hope over despair, and surrender over control, we are training ourselves to depend more fully on His guidance. We learn that our strength is limited, but His power is limitless. We begin to see that even the storms, the setbacks, and the disappointments are tools for growth, shaping our character, deepening our understanding, and aligning our hearts with His purposes. Faith does not eliminate difficulties, but it changes how we respond to them. Instead of succumbing to panic, anxiety, or despair, we face challenges with courage, knowing that God is working on our behalf. We begin to approach uncertainty with calm, clarity, and confidence, trusting that even when the outcome is unknown, God's presence and provision are constant. In this way, faith becomes a source of peace that surpasses understanding, a steady anchor in a world of unpredictability. Faith also teaches patience. Often, the things we desire or the answers we seek are not immediate. Waiting can feel uncomfortable, frustrating, or even discouraging, but through faith, we learn that timing is not ours to dictate. Each delay is an opportunity to grow spiritually, to strengthen our hearts, and to align ourselves with God's perfect plan. The process of waiting becomes an act of trust, an expression of belief that God's timing is flawless and that His plan is unfolding even when we cannot see it. Faith deepens our perspective on life. It allows us to see beyond the temporary difficulties and recognize the long-term purpose in every circumstance. We begin to understand that challenges are not obstacles meant to destroy us, but lessons meant to refine us, opportunities meant to guide us, and moments meant to strengthen our dependence on God. As our faith grows, we develop resilience, courage, and an unwavering hope that is not shaken by setbacks. We learn to face life's uncertainties with strength, to make decisions guided by trust rather than fear, and to move forward with a sense of peace that cannot be shaken by external circumstances. Faith becomes the lens through which we interpret our experiences, allowing us to see God's hand at work even in situations that seem hopeless or chaotic. It transforms doubt into confidence, anxiety into calm, and fear into courage. Each step taken in faith is a step closer to understanding God's purpose and experiencing His provision. Over time, we realize that faith is not just about believing in a God who exists, but about actively choosing to rely on Him, to trust Him, and to follow Him even when the path is unclear, the outcomes uncertain, and the challenge is great. Fear is one of the strongest forces that can hold us back, keeping us from stepping into the fullness of life and from experiencing the peace and provision that God has for us. When circumstances feel unpredictable, when plans fail, and when life seems beyond our control, fear naturally begins to creep in. It tells us that we are alone, that we are powerless, and that nothing will work out. But trusting God calls us to do the opposite of fear. It calls us to release the tight grip we have on our own understanding, to step out of our need to control every detail, and to anchor our hope in His promises rather than in our own ability to manage the outcome. Letting go of fear is not easy, because fear often disguises itself as rational concern or realistic thinking. It whispers doubts into our minds, magnifies problems, and paints the worst-case scenarios in vivid color. Yet when we consciously choose to trust God, we begin to see fear for what it truly is, a barrier that keeps us from experiencing the freedom, joy, and peace that comes from surrender. Releasing fear starts with perspective. We must remind ourselves that God is greater than any challenge, wiser than any circumstance, and infinitely more capable than our own limited understanding. When we keep our focus on Him, fear loses its power to control our thoughts, emotions, and actions. Instead of reacting impulsively or withdrawing in anxiety, we are able to move forward with confidence, knowing that God is working on our behalf, even when we cannot see the full picture. Trusting God also involves practice. Fear often persists because we have trained ourselves to rely on our own strength and understanding. By repeatedly choosing faith over fear, by taking small steps of trust, and by leaning into God's guidance in everyday situations, we gradually rewire our hearts and minds to respond with courage and peace rather than worry and panic. Each moment of surrender strengthens our ability to face the next challenge, creating a cycle of growing confidence in God's faithfulness. Another important aspect of letting go of fear is embracing the unknown. Life is full of unpredictability and certainty is rare, but God calls us to move forward even when the way is unclear. When we step into uncertainty with faith, we discover that God's presence is constant, His provision is reliable, and His guidance is sure. Fear diminishes when we realize that we do not have to have all the answers or control all the outcomes. We simply need to trust the one who does. Trusting God in moments of fear also teaches gratitude. Even in the midst of uncertainty, we can focus on the ways He has already been faithful, the lessons we have learned, and the strength we have gained. Gratitude shifts our attention from what could go wrong to what is already secure, from worry about the future to confidence in God's enduring love and care. This practice of gratitude strengthens our faith and diminishes the influence of fear over our lives. Finally, letting go of fear and anchoring our hope in God transforms not only how we experience challenges, but also how we live each day. Fear shrinks us, limits our actions, and clouds our judgment. Trust enlarges our hearts, empowers our decisions, and opens our eyes to opportunities we might otherwise miss. It allows us to walk boldly into situations that once seemed intimidating, to embrace change rather than resist it, and to act with confidence rather than hesitation. Trusting God when everything feels out of control is not about denying reality, escaping responsibility, or ignoring challenges. It is about facing life honestly, acknowledging our fears, and choosing to place them in God's hands. It is about cultivating a perspective that sees beyond the immediate struggles to the greater purpose, the divine plan, and the unwavering love that God has for us. When we let go of fear and anchor our hope in Him, we discover a freedom that allows us to live fully, walk confidently, and embrace life with courage and peace that is unshakable.